Right, morning all, welcome. Nice toasty Friday morning. As you can see, I'm keeping warm in the background, and I hope you all are as well, because definitely winter is upon us, I think, in more ways than one at the moment, certainly in Joburg anyway. I don't know about where you guys are, but yeah, fantastic. Well, welcome to
Ivan, please note, I'm doing this.
Trevor was doing that just now. He was
next to your fire.
Yeah, get some warmth up going here. So okay, so welcome Lee. Over to you. Let's kick the session off.
Well, morning everyone. Lovely to see you all. I've really been thinking a lot about strength. It's something that is an ongoing topic and conversation in my own mind and life, actually. And so I hope I'm just going to kind of give a summary of some of the things that I think allow for us to be strong. And so one of the things is that there are situations and events in our lives that are out of our control. And you are in a position to step up. And sometimes it doesn't even feel like a choice. It just feels like what you have to do in that situation. The example that I give is, so I'm an oldest child. So I don't know, and I always say I'm a very typical oldest child. So I have all the traits of being, you know, overly responsible and bossy and all of those things. But one of the things that happened is so I'm the oldest of 5, and when I was 12, so I already had 3 sisters. My brother was only born when I was 18. So I always talk about the fact that when I was in matric, my mom was pregnant, which was extremely embarrassing for me at the time, but everybody loved my mom and my brother. So that worked out well. But when I was 12, my mom was pregnant and had a stillborn baby. And that actually devastated my mom. It just broke her in many ways. And so at that age, and my dad didn't know how to handle it. It was just overwhelming for him. And so as the oldest child, I just stepped into, I wouldn't say the role of mom, but I certainly never expected my mom to mother me from that stage. I took care of my mom. And that is something that has not changed. So my mom continues to live with us. And there's the rest of the family that my mom looks after, and then I look after my mom. That's kind of the rules in our family. And so that makes me the matriarch, really, because I end up being the one that keeps everybody together and makes sure that we're all in, you know, keeping in line as the oldest child. But I think of that as a moment in time that I had to step up, and there've been other moments like that where something has happened and you need to be there in that moment. And what I've realized is that when you do that, there's a strength and an ability and something that happens that you're capable of more than what you realize you can do. And I've seen it in myself over and over, and I cannot believe that this is not available to others. That there is, it doesn't mean it doesn't take its toll. I've done that, and then there've been times where I've needed to process it, or I've got extraordinarily tired, and then you need to deal with that. So it's not that you are Superwoman or Superman, that you can keep going at a certain pace with certain emotional and physical demands on you without needing to be replenished. I had to learn that lesson. I didn't learn that automatically. I had to go through burnout to actually learn that lesson. So that's the one thing that I think does there are opportunities, challenges that are created where we learn strength by doing. I think there's also choices that we make where we push ourselves out of our comfort zone, where we make a conscious decision to be more or do more or learn more or grow in a certain way that thickens our skin, pushes the boundaries, and makes us stronger in our minds and in our spirits. And the one example I give there is, and that comes back to Trevor. So in the very, very early days, when I was working with Trevor, well, at the Inner Circle. So it was a network of networks. So there were lots of networking groups. And I was heading up one of the groups here in Randburg. And Trevor said to us, well, invite the businesses in the area. Tell them that this is, available to them, and they can come and share their business, and we can collaborate in that way. So for the first time in my life, I went knocking on doors. I literally walked up the street, various streets, and would just arrive at a business, knock on the door and say, hi, can I speak to the CEO? I have this great opportunity. And it was terrifying. This cold calling story I was shaking in my boots, and I thought I would get over it. I never did. I was terrified every single time, but I did it. And I think that in itself, it just built as I say, a slightly thicker skin, a bit of a courage, a bit of a something that said, I can do this. And then there are two other things that I would like to, the other thing that I found that is strengthening for me are looking after myself, making sure that my spirit is in a good place. And I do that through my relationship with God. The other thing is my physical body. When I am walking, when I am fit, when I'm doing my Pilates, when I'm physically in a place of strength, that also gives me a mental and emotional strength. So, the last thing I want to say is, it doesn't mean that we have to be strong all the time. That there's a strength also in weakness, in vulnerability, in asking for help, in needing, in being, in accepting that we cannot do it all ourselves. That's also been a hard lesson for me, whose motto is, I can do it by myself. And so I've needed to learn that lesson too, that I'm not self-sufficient. And so sometimes what I've realized is our strengths can be our weaknesses. And so we need to acknowledge that as well. So I've maybe given you a mouthful, but I'm hoping that it's stimulated some ideas. And so handing over to you to share your ideas and thoughts around what is strength for you.
Great, thanks, Leah. Fantastic introduction there, and some excellent points there. The thought that came to my mind is, the old sort of saying is that, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And, I think in many cases, some of the examples you cited there say exactly that. And some of the stories we've had over the last little while have proven that in many different ways. So, yeah, couldn't agree with you more. So I'm going to go to Trevor first for a change. So Trevor.
Right. Well, I've just shared that the strongest person I know is my wife, without a shadow of doubt. The gentlest, meekest, nicest, terrifying creature you've ever met. And it's just because she has this absolute inner strength. And I have no idea where it came from, because we are so alike. And if anyone believes that, they will believe anything that I try and sell them. We are complete opposite. but she absolutely balances with her strength, her inner strength, what I tend to have as my physical, and I'm not going to call this Mpumalelo, I'm not the strongest boykie in town, but I have the strength to be able to do long distance things. It's a physical strength, but I don't think that's even at 10% of what she shows from within as an individual. So I think this inner strength thing, and I was having a discussion with a couple of our people yesterday. I think women are 1,000% stronger than men. So I prefer to work with women, and especially with my wife. I don't want her to hear that I want to work with other women, but she is super strong, inner strength, and I just love it when women stand up, as they've done on this forum, and actually shared just who they are. I think the depth of sadness and stories and how people keep on picking themselves up show the foundation of inner strength that all of us women have. So power to us women is what I'm about.
You go, girl. Right. Let's pop across to someone who's come back to us, hasn't been around for a long time. So Sarah, welcome back. Fantastic to have you back on board. Love to hear your thoughts on the topic of strength.
Yeah, good morning, sir. I'm just busy laughing there at what Trevor is saying. Good morning, everybody. And yes, it's certainly been a very long time because we had to try and work out the homeschooling thing. And I realized I had to do a schedule for my kids to help them to cope. So that's why I've been away, and I'll probably be away until the second one is going back to school as well on the 17th. So the other one is going back on Monday. So it's been a time to test my strength during that period, because there was a time, I think by the 4th week or so, I was really feeling very frustrated and feeling like I'm not really handling this very, very well, because I'm not a very patient person, and that was highlighted very strongly during this time. But yeah, just shortly on the strength part, I came on when Lee was just sharing her experiences, and I was just reminded of my dad. I was raised by a very strong father, very loving father, but very strong personality, who really raised us. I always say he raised girls, but raised them like boys. And so he really just put that strength in us. He used to say, and he's late now, but he used to say that manhood is not about pants, because there's many men who wear pants but are not men. And then he would say, and it's not about mustaches either. Goats have mustaches, but they're not men. Men is character. You know, and so I was raised, that background kind of, you know, gave me strength. I do believe I'm a strong woman, but I've surprised myself as well sometimes, because Lee spoke about, you know, the spiritual life and my faith as well in the Lord Jesus Christ. I've been surprised at times when I've been thrown into situations where I had strength that I knew I didn't have. It didn't come from me. It didn't come from being socialized. It didn't come from thinking great. It was just a strength that came in through that time that helped me through difficult times. So I do believe there is a strength that comes from the way we are socialized, we are raised, but there's also that strength that comes, that surprises you, that comes from within, you know, where you are able to really survive. And lastly, I just want to say also, I'm learning this one. This one is new for me, learning that strength is also being able to take a step back and allowing other people to lead. There was a time when I didn't see it like that. I always thought strength was being in the forefront. Being strong meant you were always in the front, always being the top. But I realized, you know, the bigger strength, it takes much more strength to allow other people to go ahead and be behind, you know, and be comfortable in that, in allowing other people to lead. So yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Sarah, and welcome back. We look forward to hopefully having you on a bit more regularly in the future as things hopefully settle down to some kind of new normality. Let's go across to Herman. Morning, Herman.
Morning, all. You know, thinking about strengths, I think to really be effective and Give me 5 minutes. I actually need to sort out my thoughts about that. My apologies.
No problem, and we can come back to you. Okay, let's go across to Stella.
Morning, everybody. Yes, so Lee, I just so smiled when you talked about the eldest child syndrome, because I realize now why I am the way I am. I've got 2 siblings, and when you talked about it, I thought about, you know, when my mom died. I've never had to be able, I was never previously in the position to arrange a funeral. And when my mom died, it was like everybody just looked at me, and I had to arrange a funeral. And you know, and it was very difficult because you're grieving, but you know, and everybody just looks at you, and you've got to do it. And I think then, you know, when you are put in those positions, you get a strength from, I don't know where it comes from. And I strongly believe it comes from God, that actually gives you the strength to do what you need to do. And I think it's only in those situations that you realize, actually, you know what, I am actually much stronger than what you think. Funny enough, when you talked about burnout, yesterday there was a webinar that they arranged for mediators, how to see the signs of burnout and what to look out for. It was actually so excellent. I can forward it to you guys who's interested. There was a lady that she talked for 2 hours on burnout, and it was amazing. And just 2 things that she said, and I think it also comes back to your strength, is she said, increase your diet of positive emotions, you know, and because I think if you don't have positive emotions, then you don't realize your strength. To be more positive will actually give you the courage to be stronger. And then also another thing I just want to share with you guys is self-compassion. Because normally people that tend to burn out is they just give so much of themselves, and they just carry on and on and on. And she said, have self-compassion and treat yourself kindly. You know, you've got to be kind to yourself, but yet still stay accountable for your actions. Yeah, so that was very profound for me yesterday. And also she also touched on self-efficacy, you know, to know your strengths and to know who you are, and that that also assists you in actually be encouraged to do things that you normally wouldn't have done. So that's from me. Thanks, guys.
Great, thanks, Stella. Donovan, let's come across to you.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, I was just thinking of the story I would like to share with you. Before we got married, my then girlfriend, now my wife, we went on a hiking, mountain climbing trial for a weekend. So what happened is, months before that, I had a serious knee operation. So I was still in the recovery phase. Somehow she encouraged me to join them. It was mostly our colleagues and a few friends. So it was quite a stretch. It was about 18 kilometers the first phase. Not even a quarter of the distance. You know, I started to complain about pains and fatigue, and you know, I really struggled. I actually ended up lagging behind everyone. And then my wife had to, you know, shout out to the people in front just to wait a bit so that she can attend to me. She also got one of her colleagues to nurse me, massaging my leg and encouraging me, etc. I managed to fall the fit.
Oh, Donovan, your sound is really breaking up quite badly. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I must move around, maybe.
Yeah, I think perhaps just get in a little bit closer to your microphone.
Talk closer to the mic.
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, sorry about it.
Come closer.
Yeah, so,
Come closer.
okay. I'm gonna try and speak loud as well. Right, hope it's clear enough now. Yeah, so as I was saying, when we reached the overnight camp, we had to be separated into two groups, the ladies one side and the men one side, and we had to literally sleep like almost in the bush. So the next day we had to pack up, put all our equipment and provision, etc., on our bags and stride along. I actually managed to find strength that I didn't have the day before, like almost miraculously. So I think it's partially strength that I found within myself, and also the strength from my wife and a colleague, that were there to encourage me. I actually had no symptoms of the day before. I had a lot more strength, and I actually finished, I almost said the course, the race, in time and on time with everybody. So that was quite an experience to me, that I was able to overcome the fatigue by drawing on the strength of others and finding the strength that I had within myself. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Donovan. Guy, let's come across to you.
Ivan, you caught me having a puff on my illegal black market cigarette.
I know, I could smell it from here.
Yeah, which still is black market next Monday. It's shocking, but anyway. I've given up drinking, so that's a good, I suppose, is that a strength? So, when we were young, I don't know if, I always heard the saying and was told the saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never harm me. So when I was young, I was strong because I wouldn't let sticks and stones break my bones, as it were. And I wasn't really, because I was so young, I really didn't worry about the words that people were saying. So as I've got older, I've become stronger against the words than what people say, and actually don't give a shit. You know what I mean? So the point of it is that for me, the strength and growth, you actually go through it in life and you learn a few things. So today, I'm not strong against the sticks and stones, but I'm strong against the words, which means one's got to have mental toughness, and one's got to know, if I look at a glass, I will call this, if the glass is this full, I will say that if this is my stress glass, I must know that when I get to there, that is my stress and that is my stress gap. And then I know how to actually take time out. So I just use this simple example. Okay, even when I'm coaching people, say, you got to know, you got to get a feel for your stress, and that will help with your strength. And so you always leave a gap. Anyway, there we are, 65 seconds. Thank you very much. Good to be back.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah, and you can take the gap now, so it's fine. So. Right, Cecile, let's get across to you.
Okay, so let me do just flip this around. When my son was born, I was 27, and I've always been someone that likes physical activity. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to be, when my son is a teenager and my daughter, I want to be proud to walk on the beach with them. So wait a second. So I checked out a few things last night. Let me just flip this thing around. Okay. So that photograph there, oops, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? was when I was 30 years old. And I thought, I'm going to carry on training until I'm 90. So that photograph there was when I was 50 years old. And that one is when I turned 60, that day when I was 60. So I see physical strength, and I may not look strong because I'm quite thin, but I think I'm stronger than most people, males and females. And to get to mental strength, when I got divorced and we had no money, and I just had two teenage children at that time to look after. Like Lee said, I had to knock down doors. I took a box of stationery and I started walking the streets, and it was in those days before you could do that. I just had to knock on every creche door, a school door, say, do you want to buy pens and pencils and sticky notes and whatever. And I kept us going for 2 months. Then I realized how strong one actually is. But I see keeping my mental strength, I see very much linked to keeping my physical strength. So, and it's all to do with discipline. So I do push-ups and sit-ups every single day of my life, whether it is 10 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning before I go to bed, even after whatever going out. I would always do my push-ups and sit-ups because it kind of just gives you the, okay, I'm still there, I'm still okay. And part of it is the mental strength to actually do it. So I think I'm strong, and I didn't think I'm actually a threatening type of personality, but sometimes people say to me I'm kind of overbearing, over-threatening. So I hope none of you experience me like that, but that's my bit.
Yes, Cecile, absolutely, Cecile. I wouldn't dare to disagree with you, Cecile. So yeah. All right, let's go across to Nazipo.
Good morning. I just checked now on my phone because there'd always been this quotation that I loved about strength, and it's one of my favorite authors, Oriah Mountain Dreamer. She talks about how surrender when we do not fight with life when it calls upon us, we are lifted, and the strength to do what needs to be done finds us. I love that quote. And what I want to pick up on is what both Lee and Sarah spoke about, which was the strength in weakness, in vulnerability. And I think I love that kind of strength where when you are weak.
We're really struggling with your sound again this morning for some reason. Not too sure what's happening there. I'd love to hear what you're saying, but really struggling to hear it.
Okay. Go somewhere else. Let me try sort out my earphones.
All right. Yeah. All right. I'll come back to you in a moment. If you want to just try and move around a bit. Thanks. Right. Let's go across to Jesper.
Yeah, I certainly can't compare with the physical strength of Cecile there. I think she's our hero today on that side. It's much easier for me to talk about the mental strength, or I think, coming from most of the stories, it's almost an undiscovered something that you have that you only discover when you are put in the situation. And it refers to the trauma that you experience. And I was just thinking about trauma. So trauma is this unforeseen event that just happened to all of us this last 2.5 months. And some will probably get out of it sooner than others, and nobody can foresee where it'll take us. So that's a real trauma. It's a curveball that You haven't caused, but it's thrown at you, you have to deal with it. But I'm also thinking of the trauma that we allow in our lives, and I call it the little holes in your boat that takes on water, and allowing a relationship with negative people who drain you, who takes away your strength, and like that example of the glass of Guy Danes. Now that you can control. And I know that at one stage when I made much younger, 20 odd years ago, when I changed careers from the corporate into working for myself, the one good advice I had was just switch yourself off from every negative input, which in my case meant reading no more newspapers, no more TV, no more news, no more Business Week or Financial Mails or none of that stuff, and just flood your mind with positive input of people who have actually made it. And that brings me to another point, how easy anyone can say anything negative and everybody immediately believes it and start flashing it around in their social media. But someone just stand up and say something positive and everybody says, how can you say that? Where's your proof? Prove it. So we are quick to believe rubbish, but we don't believe the truth or the positive. So in terms of strength, if I look back at the times of my life, it was a process where I had to cut off from negative input and become aware of what drained me. And I had to change my circle of friends a few times because I found out that they're not adding value to me. They're just eating my strength. So that's the one input. And then the last one is just that finally, I can carry on almost indefinitely as long as I have strong belief in my purpose. The moment I doubt my purpose and why am I doing what I'm doing, then all of a sudden, you know, it's just becoming hopeless and you want to give up. So the two things is then protect your strength by who you surround yourself with, and then also having strength in purpose.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Let's get across to Mpumelelo.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. Nearly missed the session. My service provider seemed to have not been working this morning. And I was thinking I'm going to miss what Trevor has to say. I've been chuckling since yesterday. Yeah, and yeah, I feel warm just looking at your background there, Ivan. But anyway, I think my thoughts around strength continued from Nozipo's story yesterday. And I divided it like this in my head, that there's probably spiritual strength, which is the one that takes you through the ups and downs of life. And for me, with that strength, I then came to a thought that said, strength is something you gain in good times so that you have it for bad times. And I guess that's the spiritual strength. It's like when you, like Cecile, you go to gym, at that time you may not need all those muscles, but when the muscles are needed, you find that you're strong enough. So strength is something that you gain in good times, but use it in bad times. Then there was a second type of strength that I thought of, and this is the strength of doing the things that very few people would be willing to do. Can I keep it at that? Yeah, that's me.
Great, thanks, Mpumelelo. Unfortunately, you did miss Trevor. I put him on the spot first this morning. So, so Mpo, let's come across to you.
Okay, so the joys of being last is that everybody has covered everything you want to say. So I just want to make one different aspect of strength that I learned in the past few months. So this idea of, and this, Trevor, please don't kill me. I'll include you in the girls, but this is from a perspective of women. I'm on a board of an organization called the Leading Women Network. And this organization was started because two women that we knew in our business network committed suicide. And from the outside, these women were incredibly successful. They had titles, You know, they were on boards, they were doing amazing things, they were mentors to other people. So how does somebody like that die, you know, and they kill themselves? But when we revisited the story, it was because these women were defined as imbogodo. You know, you hear that all the time around Women's Day. Watintu mfazi, watintu imbogodo. You know, you strike a woman, you strike a rock. And I thought about this idea of a rock is, you know, it's something that is emotionless. It's not soft, it's not gentle, it's hard. And it left me wondering, how has that impacted the way we define strength? And so when we started this organization, we said, it's okay to say, I am not okay. And we hosted an event in February where we just wanted people to talk about what is not making them okay. And what came out was, I'm expected to be strong. And so I cannot fall apart. You know, so many people are relying on me, and yet I'm dying inside. Does this, I don't know, add to this conversation? But for me, I wanted to bring that up, that there's this other side of strength that is weighing heavily, especially on women, you know, because they're expected to be imbogodo, and yet they're dying inside.
Thanks, Umboya. Absolutely. I think the weight of expectation can be very destructive at times. And so, yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Right, let's get across to Herman for a final word, and then back to Lee to wrap up.
Yeah, for me, true strength is actually being fed by the four spheres that are important in life, in my life at least. I'm referring to the emotional, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Just to give you an example, and it's not about bragging, I'm turning 82 next month. And I have been working possibly between 15 to 60 hours this last couple of months per week, working on some projects, some quite exciting projects, which I will share with you the moment we have made our first inroads. And I wouldn't be able to do that because there's a very strong demand on my mental capacity if I wouldn't be physically fit. And just to give a little bit of competition to Cecile, because I'm about 20 odd years older than she is, by Sunday morning, I will have climbed 500 stories of 8,500 stairs and done over 1,000 push-ups this month. Not this year, this month. And as I said, I'm 82 in June. But anyway, so for me, that having that kind of balance in those four spheres, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual, is really for me the true meaning of strength. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Herman. Yeah, we've definitely got some powerhouses on this forum, so both mentally and physically. Great, so thanks, folks. Let's quickly back to Lee to wrap up for the morning, and then I think we'll end off for today.
Thank you again, everybody. Such meaningful and deep conversations that you know, touch not just our heads but our lives, and that's really the essence of what these conversations are about, isn't it? The difference that they are meant to make in our lives, because we are taking the courage to share, maybe in ways that we wouldn't normally. And getting such a wide range of different inputs, positive inputs. And I think, you know, Jasper put his finger on that, just saying, so, and somebody, the dose of positivity, where are we getting it? And it's, you know, this is one of the places, maybe the key places where we can find that. So I'm thinking about Monday and wondering whether we don't continue this conversation, but more in the line of the trauma that Jasper's talking about, and we are entering into a new phase. And it's not so much let's dwell on the trauma, but how are you equipping yourself to deal with the aftermath of lockdown and what is likely to be a whole new phase, which is not necessarily going to be a better phase, going into into level 3. You know, where we might see a spike in COVID, where if you are, even if you're on LinkedIn, where you're getting a barrage of different perspectives of lockdown work, lockdown doesn't work, you know, and how are you dealing with all of this input? I'm getting it from clients, you know, and getting pushback in various ways. So how are we managing all of these dynamics and remaining true to ourselves and strong in what we can do? So I'm moving from this sort of idea around strength to what are we personally doing to equip ourselves in the current situation. Is that okay with everybody to think about? Good.
Right.
Well, but enjoy the weekend. You know, I've been, one of the things, I'll just end on this, and I know I'm running over time, but one of the things that I've realized in myself is that what's making, not only what's making me tired, what's draining me, but what's giving me energy. And it's not just rest, it's play. So I think we need to go out and play, have fun. That's also a good thing.
Right, thanks, Lee. Stay strong, stay well. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
Okay, bye. Trevor's on his way. He's playing.